Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, a weekly show brought to you by our show partner, Join Cycling, the #1 training platform for your cycling and a bit of running goals. Got a lot to talk about. Not so many race recaps this week because we already did them. A lot of them last week. We have wildcard drama. Arvid de Kleijn, too tired for Sanremo, but fit enough for 2 hard cobbled races. Luke's got a whole Dutch news section. 3 bits of Dutch news. Catalunya stage 7 just before we start recording. They've shortened the final stage, and we've also got race previews. Nokere Koerse, Milano-Torino tomorrow, GP Denain on Thursday, Bredene Koksijde on Friday, and Milano-Sanremo. We have the separate preview coming later in the week because start lists have been released. But Benji, are they to be trusted or not?
I'm not sure about them being trusted because Michael Valgren is on the start list and I'm pretty sure he's injured. So I think it's a preliminary start list for Milano-Sanremo and we'll have to take it with a grain of salt. That being said, did I just hear you do the wow for a Catalunya stage shortening? An emergency podcast sound for Catalunya shortening a stage? Is that where we are right now? Is that how watched we are?
No transfer news. Okay, Pidcock. I'm not happy with you, Tom Pidcock. Pidcock's too happy at the moment. Pidcock's doing too well. He's settled too well into his new team. So we got no weekly segment. What are we going to say? Tom Pidcock's been a great move and he's going great. No. Last year we got to talk about the drama. So that's unfortunate for us.
To talk about the drama, I'm actually going to make a question here. I'm going to make a discussion point that is not in the notes because I feel like it. We are going to discuss Pidcock for a second. So Pidcock leaves INEOS, goes to Q36.5, was a dramatic exit. He does well. INEOS changes part of their management. We've seen a pretty crazy change in terms of, half the staff has changed. And we've seen that visually in races as well, in my personal opinion, that tactically the team is doing a lot better. How much of that is related to the staff changes, you think?
It has to be. And the way they've approached the season differently. I think they did a January altitude. I don't know if that was a new thing. I mean, Sheffield is best ever level in Paris-Nice? I don't know. But they created race situations for Sheffield to do what he's good. Like, Sheffield should have been racing like McNulty the last 2 years. Long solos. He is a big engine. And we saw that Jorgensen on cold airs in the 5-minute effort was 30 seconds quicker, but once it became the 45-minute protracted chase, you couldn't bring him back. So I think that is the difference.
Sheffield. It's not even just Sheffield. Tobias Vos, very similar behavior at Paris. So it's like they're taking they had the traditional approach in the past, and they're taking more of the newer strategies. It's not really new strategies, but it's strategies we've seen more and more over the last couple of years, I feel like, in the sport of cycling. And a bit more out of the box than the usual traditional ones, maybe. A bit more, I think, aggressive and daring, because they take a little bit more risk by going all out early. In doing so, potentially risking capitulating on the final hill. But in doing so, they potentially up their chances at a better result to begin with. So it's slightly higher risk, slightly higher reward. And that's what I do like to see when it comes to INEOS here. And we've said it all week, so I wanted to bring that up because after this week, they deserve the credit for that one. But I want to give you back the microphone because you said we discussed most races in our daily recaps, except one. I stopped you from talking about one last week. Trofeo Binda Juniors. Tell me about it.
Yeah, good race.
Did you watch it?
There's no coverage.
But, I thought so.
Apparently it was quite open. I heard that Sydney Swieringa opened the race, Megan Aaron's quarter, and went solo. So
are they in the same team or?
I don't know how it works. Because I gotta say
they're both part of Grauwels Watersley R&D cycling team U19, so a junior team. So it seems to me that there has to be like a bit of cooperation then. I don't know if juniors abide by the team rules as much, but I would expect so. Anyway.
Well, I also want to point out there's a rider, and I'm typing her name into PCS, Anja Grossman, I think it is. but it's coming up with Jianjing Liu, the China Glory rider. So again, search bars, not my best friend. She's like 16 years old, mountain bike rider, multiple champion there. She came third in what looks like her first road race ever on the sort of UCI calendar. She's obviously a huge talent. But yeah, they're the three to watch out for. There's apparent, they've got in May, Occitanie, they go Mont, watt per kilo test, which Kat Ferguson won last year. So that's a really good test to see who's really good.
I wanted to ask you because I felt in the past that I struggled with this a couple of years ago, where if people are now watching World Tour Cycling and maybe dabbling a little bit in watching U23 races like Avenir, how can you properly follow junior racing in 2025?
Like junior women racing, you can't. It's mostly not televised.
I feel like I'm following a couple of people on Twitter that post about it, like that Emeli guy, the first cycling guy.
Yeah.
But outside of a couple of people that are super invested in it, it's basically just trying to follow results on the likes of First Cycling and PCS and hoping that you can follow that and trying to find a couple of interviews left and right by like Instagram accounts or Twitter accounts. But it's so difficult to follow junior racing, no?
It is. But that's the art to it, I guess. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's something you should maybe follow something else. It's if you want to watch something.
We see teams then making bonds with club teams. For example, I'm pretty sure that the Unibet Tittema Rockets made a deal with a French club team actually now, which that was kind of surprising to me. They've changed their nationality of the team. Yeah, they changed their nationality to a French team for, in my opinion, wildcard purposes and maybe betting rules purposes when it comes to betting sponsors not necessarily being allowed on the shirt from a certain point in this season. I think June or July. But I was just expecting a Dutch club team, to be honest. But it's a French club team. Don't really mind it personally. But is it more... Because like you said, like we just said, junior racing hard to follow. Is that why teams try and find grassroots connections with smaller teams to have a boots on the ground approach?
Because then you can see the power data. You don't have to ask for it. You're seeing how they're progressing. You're seeing their training history, injury history, and you got a much better handle on, okay, this rider's performing this. This is how it compares to our U23 riders maybe, or younger riders, or this is who beat our rider, and our rider did really good power that day. So this other junior is obviously very good. So we're seeing more and more. I think it's going to trickle down, and there'll be more professionalism in the junior ranks with teams having feeder squads. Already, Visma have the YEG Skill junior team. It's not a full feeder team like that, but it's like a cooperation like you're describing with Unibet Tittema Rockets. Wildcard drum, Benji. Before we get to that, it's already New Year's resolutions. Some of them might have been in the bin for a few people. Maybe you're still on track. I want to give you an update. Join Cycling just did a study of some of their users, a fair big sample size too, not just like 10 people, of athletes, which you all are, using Join Cycling, who did, with a reasonable level of compliance, their training plan since January. This is their results, the progress of Join users. The average, if you started at less than 200 watts, FTP this is, 20 watts gained to your FTP in 2 months and a week. I think about 2 months. So in 2 months, 20 watt gain, over 10% gain to your FTP. If you start at 200 to 250 watts, 12 watt gain. 250 to 300 watts, 10 watt gain. And over 300 watts, 6 watt gain to people's, on average, estimated FTP. That's just in 2 months. The biggest number's the like 20 watt one, but the most surprising one to me is the 300 plus watt, that in 2 months they gained 6 watts to their estimated FTP, because they're already fit cyclists if you have a FTP over 300.
Like you.
No, I do not have an FTP over 300. Nearly.
But also, I've noticed, like, I was sick for 2 months at the start of this year. I did a recovery plan, and I was shocked at how fast I got back into a form where I got confident, because I'm a very confidence-driven cyclist, and just 3 weeks of doing a recovery plan. I rode up Alpe d'Huez this weekend, destroyed my PR from a year ago, which that gives me so much confidence for the future, and I feel like I'm ready to take up my next plan now.
Yep, Benji's looking good. Benji's a panache rider, so he needs something like joint cycling to keep him on track. Otherwise, he just he just will do whatever whenever he's training. So go check out joint cycling, even if you're fit or you're just starting out. It doesn't matter. Joint cycling can help you improve and achieve your cycling goals. Go through the website in the link down below in the show notes or the description of the YouTube video. Wildcard driver Benji. So the UCI / the race organizers want to add additional wildcards, discretionary wildcards to their Grand Tours. Obviously, Grand Tour invitations, when you have a World Tour license, the primary commercial benefit of that World Tour license is you are guaranteed to attend all World Tour races, including the Tour de France, Giro, and the Volta. You have to pay for that license, by the way. You have to achieve enough points to get that license, which is to be in the top 18 teams in the triennial cycle to not be relegated. And that's the rules everyone's working with. But now the race organizers want more wildcards. Benji, why do they want more wildcards?
Well, first of all, they want an extra wildcard they want the balance between being able to give wildcards to the obligatory teams that deserve to be there in terms of UCI points, which are the Lottos or the Israels of the world, the ones that are highly placed when it comes to UCI points in the second division of cycling. They get the obligatory wildcards. Now, next to that, an organizer also wants to give their wildcards to local is maybe a weird word, but they're national pro teams from the second division. For example, with Italy, that's the likes of Bardiani. But there's also the extra factor now where we've got a couple of pro teams that might not get the obligatory wildcards in pro teams, but also have top riders like Q46.5 suddenly showing up with the likes of Pidcock. We've got Tudor Pro Cycling suddenly showing up with the likes of Mark Hirschi. And the balance of all those makes it that organizers want to both get their national pro teams, so the Italian ones for the Giro, the French ones for the Tour de France, and the Spanish ones for the Vuelta. Plus, they want to get the pro teams with star riders. Plus, they have to get the obligatory wildcard. They have to give that obligatory. They're forced to do that by the UCI rules to the top pro teams. So they're just trying to get every inch of that covered across the board, and it's a bit much in doing so, to the point that if you want to be honest, I want to bring it back for a second. You said UCI and race organizers want those races to have an extra wildcard. I'll go as far as saying that I don't think the UCI cared about this issue at all before it was brought up by race organizers. I think we've discussed this numerous years already that ASO has quite a bit of power in the sport, and I think the UCI is just doing what ASO is asking them to do.
ASO wants Alaphilippe at the race with Tudor. Tudor's also a good team. They want Pidcock at the race. Mm-hmm. They have to invite Total Energy. Problem. So, same with the Vuelta. The Vuelta every year has a rotation because they can't invite all the Spanish pro teams. I suggest the solution is that there's too many Spanish pro teams. But then, anyway, the race organizers, they want it commercially, and it devalues, I guess, the teams like a Lotto or an Israel are saying, hold on, and maybe even Tudor, Benji, because Tudor won't get promoted, but Tudor, I'm not sure, they might have the annual wildcard like Alpecin always used to. They'll say, hold on, we've just scheduled our riders to ensure we score the most UCI points so that we can get the automatic wildcards because we earned them. And then you're going to open it up 6 weeks before the Giro and say, we'll invite them because we like their rider.
Like, regardless of the perspectives of certain teams and so forth, I just don't like it when the rules of the game get changed, not even midway, but near the end of the game's finish line. For example, a couple of years ago, when the relegation cycle ended and Lotto and Israel ended up going to the second division of cycling, the rules were also changed by the UCI because Israel wasn't, if I recall, like threatening with legal action against the UCI.
They gave them a parachute landing.
Yes, that's a valid description of what happened. They basically allowed Israel not necessarily to join Grand Tours automatically, but to join every 1 week race on top of the 1 day races they would already be allowed to join. So they, like you said, they give them a parachute landing into the second division of cycling just because Israel was threatening them with legal action. They changed the rules of the relegation cycle, the relegation game, just at the finish line, if not just after the finish line of that cycle. I'm sorry, but I don't like that. And it changes. Lots of teams spend so much, first of all, money, time planning, invested in the right races, sending the right riders to the right races to get the most UCI points. And then for the UCI to change that last minute, I just don't like that. Yes, I would like to see every team that wants to be at the Tour de France be at the Tour de France, but that's simply not possible. And at the end of the day, it's even my opinion that I want to see less riders per team, but that's a whole other story.
I mean, you can do it in advance. So if you want to do it, if this is going to make racing more exciting, because I would rather see at the Tour de France, Tudor with Alaphilippe, Hirschi and de Kleijn, and Q365 with Pidcock. I think they would add to the race, but 6-man teams. Make it 6-man teams then.
Or even 7. It's already one less.
Or 7. Like, I think there should be smaller teams. Also, the smaller teams makes it more likely the breakaways can win. It makes it fairer for the smaller budget teams, because the smaller budget teams, they all still have €1 million riders. Intermarché have a €1 million rider. EF have a multi-million euro rider in Carapaz. They all have multi-million euro riders, but the UAE's, INEOS, Visma's, Boras, half their team is multi, it's the depth of the teams that is really different in the Tour at least. And then if you reduce the team sizes, you can actually have more open racing, less controlled, because at the moment, if Visma and UAE decide the break is not winning today, it does not matter what the other teams do, because they have 8 riders, like they got Christophe Laporte or Pollitt or whoever just riding at 450 watts behind the breakaway.
And those are all 7 figures riders as well, eh? Like, I think a lot of people still don't realize that if you look at like a team of UAE and a team of Visma, for example, and a couple of other teams at the top of cycling as well, Red Bull Bora's pretty high up on that list these days as well. If you look at those teams and you go through the riders, you'll be shocked by, okay, this rider is probably on $1 million. Okay, this rider is probably on $1 million. Like, Wellens on UAE, for example, that rider is probably on $1 million.
Mate, minimum. Wellens wins races.
Yeah.
Wellens would be a classics leader on almost any team. I mean, he is a classics leader at UAE and Omloop. He was the opening weekend. It's not like he's just some domestique. So, I mean, and you look at the average salary growth, and it's like if the average salary is that high. I'm just looking for the tweet. Here we go. From La Flamme Rouge, from Gazetta. So Gazetta says that the average rider salary is $500K. It's the average. That means there's ones, So anyway, I've lost where I was talking about. I agree with you, Benji. It shouldn't be last minute just because they want to shoehorn Pidcock in. That seems unfair to Israel and Lotto, who earned their spot, as well as UNOX or the Tudor, who have been trying to play by the rules. Speaking of race selection, Arnaud Delis, Benji, skipping Milano-Sanremo for GP Denain and Nokere Koerse, which you're saying he did this last year. Is that correct?
I'm pretty sure he skipped Milano-Sanremo last year. I think he dropped 2 years ago in the race. Is that not correct? While you're looking it up, I think it's also the article that's in the notes.
He did Denain and then Koksijde.
So he's not riding MSR because he's not 100% fit after riding after a period of sickness. So he's not riding Milano-Sanremo, which is 6 hours and a half of not really a high tempo.
Watts.
Yes. And then an absolute bang at the finish line for like, what are we talking about? With the Cipressa included, half an hour, maybe a little bit more. Fair. Now, I think there's 2 arguments here. First of all, I think Nokere Koerse and the other race, GP Denain, are harder on the body than that last fiery 40 minutes of MSR.
Literally harder.
Yes. But is there an argument to be made that he's probably chilling in Belgium right now? Nokere Koerse is closer to his house. GP Denain is by the border. That he doesn't have to go to actual Milan-Sanremo. Is that an argument?
Yeah, like, do you think the team is kind of happy he wants to do a Belgian race that's not the biggest race, but it's still Nokere Koerse, a decent-sized Belgian race?
I don't know. Can I be honest? I feel like there's a little bit of a pressure issue with Denain in the last year and a half. I feel like with big races, there might be more pressure on him. And as a consequence, that might be a factor here. But I'm obviously not in his head, so that's pure assumption.
I think he got torched by Van der Poel and Sama, and you're right. He was like, I'm not doing Sanremo. That's what happened.
It's possible.
Like, Van der Poel came up from training, went to Sama, played with everybody, ruined everyone in the sprint, and Delhi's like, well, what am I going to do in Sanremo where he should be even better? So, who do Lotto send instead? Jene Bergmos.
Yes, Jene Berg. Well, you'll see in our MSR preview, buddy.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it's not like they have Van Gils anymore.
Exactly.
Like they don't have a sprint option, do they? Like Milan Menten?
I don't trust them to get over the Poggio with the front group, my man.
The thing is, I didn't trust Delhi for Sanremo anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm not, like, it's really strange he doesn't do it. His rider profile should fit it, but I kind of didn't trust him for it anyway. So, yeah, it is strange. Another
discussion about Delhi. How many of his mechanicals and races?
It's his fault.
I was about to ask how many of his mechanicals and races is because he stamps his pedals like a crazy man.
He's doing some shit to his bike. Or he's just riding into... No, like, why does Van der Poel never have a mech?
Smooth sailing, bro.
Because he doesn't ride into potholes. He doesn't ride... He sees the cobble, right? And he sees a slight sharp bit, moves it. It's also a skill. It is also a skill issue. So,
it is a skill, but you're describing Mathieu van der Poel like Neo from The Matrix right now.
He is like Neo. He is. He sees each cobblestone in his mind, like the beautiful mind, the account, like Affleck in The Accountant.
Is Mathieu van der Poel a robot with AI skills in his head?
He kind of is like a robot when you hear him speak as well. He's like Lambo Dubai Golf. Lambo Dubai Golf Cobble, no puncture. Let's go.
Anyway,
but to your point,
were we?
I think Delhi. I mean, listen. Sometimes it might not be his fault, but there's other Laporte. Laporte in Roubaix, every Roubaix, he's like, gets to the first cobble section. He's like, how can I destroy this bike as quickly as possible?
He's skateboarding his back wheel.
First cobble sector last year, Laporte, bang, double puncture. So it's got to. It can't all be, of course, small sample size. But the thing is, Benji, with Delhi, what if he doesn't win these races or one of them?
Well, we'll talk about the competition in a second when it comes to the race previews.
But that's not good for the confidence.
Definitely not. But that's why I'm saying maybe it's the pressure that he needs a good result in these races before the classics to step up the confidence. Because maybe he was hoping to get that from Le Samet.
Yeah, true. Because he is doing a whole host of classics. Okay, in Luke's Dutch news section, Lars van den Berg, who was on Groupama FDJ, has had to retire due to heart problems. I think he thought he was okay, and then he went and got another check, I think, and the doctor said he had like an enlarged muscle, and it wouldn't be safe to do. He could have, I think, continued if he was playing football, like Ericsson, but the problem is if he has the issue in a bike race on a descent or in a peloton of 180 people, it's a lot less safe than if you just fall down in a football match, which also isn't ideal. So he's had to retire. He's got mixed feelings about it because also he was also in really good shape. He wasn't just a sort of run-of-the-mill rider, I didn't think. And and he's sort of his dreams as a young man, your dreams go by the wayside before they've even started or on your way to them. Must be very difficult. But he's done some commentary, so I'll be interested to see what he does further. But yeah, it sort of happens maybe 2 a year now. Benji Van Hooijdonk, Van den Berg. It's not uncommon.
Yeah, it's definitely not uncommon. We see it more and more. But I also think there's an argument to be made that maybe we check for it more in athletes, which is a good thing. And as a consequence, we find it out more within the sport of cycling. And it's better to do prevention than it being too late in the first place. So it's a real shame to see Lars van den Berg leave the sport of cycling as in actually cycling. I hope that he finds other ways to still remain in the sport. But at the end of the day, it's better it's weird to look at it like that, but it's better to prevent maybe fatal problems in the future. Now, talking about Dutch cyclists, Arvid de Kleijn also has some health issues. He crashed in a Lula Tour earlier this year. He was fine after that. Then crashed in the UAE Tour, if I recall, broke his collarbone, and apparently it's a pretty rough collarbone breakage because it's in multiple places or something. A complicated collarbone break. What does that mean? Is that different places or in a difficult place?
I'm not sure. It might just be like because you.
Dr. Rouge, come on.
To ride a bike, your shoulder has to work. So, and connect with your hand and work properly, and you're riding for
Really?
like 6. Yes, it's funny. It does, and also when you're a sprinter, having to grip the bars and sprint at 1500 watts, your shoulder really has to work. So, a complicated. It could mean that the ligaments or tendons or whatever. It's not just a matter of putting the screws in. Hey, bones fixed. You got back to normal. You can get on the rollers and ride outside the week later. It could be more complicated. Same with wrist breaks, hands. I sound like Pogacar, for example. Oh, he just a fracture in his hand in Liège 2 years ago. It sounds like it really was quite complicated. So hopefully he gets back. That was a really shitty crash in UAE. Yeah. I don't know how Froome's going. Behrens is on the road to recovery too. But yeah,
Scaroni?
A lot of guys. Pardon?
How do we know if Scaroni's starting Sanremo? Because he's on the preliminary start list, but the man broke his collarbone, right, in Strade?
Scaroni? No, he didn't break it.
Oh, okay.
He didn't break it.
Let's be honest. Scaroni 2025 just pops it back in.
Yeah. So he might be doing Torino tomorrow. I'm procrastinating, delaying Benji because Torino's tomorrow. There's no teams announced. It's crazy. Speaking of race news, yeah, Catalunya's been shortened. I don't know why. Something about. Let me look.
Beyond organizers' control. Oh yeah.
Anyway, it's the late early afternoon stage. They still do 6 circuits in Montjuic. So from my perspective,
stage 7, eh?
Yeah, the last stage on Sunday week. From my perspective, it doesn't change too much, except for the breakaway hopefuls like Denain, who won this stage before.
Yep. Who won this stage before?
Denain against Moric.
Walter podiumed? Almeida podiumed?
Bajoli, Pogacar last year. Can be a small group sprint. Roglic maybe, and Remco.
Hot take. A lot of people love this stage. Not the biggest fan.
This is the stage where Remco sprinted Roglic and didn't realize Roglic let him win it and full sellied.
I'm okay with it. Gotta fake it till you make it.
Okay. So I think it's time for race previews. We've already mentioned a little bit Nokere Koerse. I think this is one of the... I'm going to do 2 hats. Serious and non-serious. Serious. The descent into the Nokere Berg, the way they did this was so dangerous. Like, it was the worst road surface descent, and they're doing sprint lead outs on cement slabs with the widest valley of death crack in the middle of it. Crazy crashes usually. Before
I bring you to the unserious, Patrick, I agree, and they've already tried to change it a couple of times in the past, if I recall, where first of all it was like a wide road into the actual segment you're talking about. They then changed it to smaller roads to try and make it a bit safer. But it didn't prevent the crashes coming afterwards because the speed was still high going into that segment because it's still descending towards that point. And now they decided to change it completely, and it's basically not the Nokere Berg finish anymore. But to bring it back to you, what does unserious Patrick think?
This is a disgrace. They have deliberately changed this course because Tim Merlier is unstoppable in this race. He's won the last 3 editions. He starts his sprint from 300 meters, takes up speed, and just obliterates everybody. It's like his Abu Dhabi breakwater sprint. Philipsen can't touch him. And I'm glad Tim Merlier is boycotting the race after they have changed the route to stop him winning.
But it does seem like an important race for the team of Soudal Quickstep, because they are, like, we've seen EF in the past change their jersey specifically for the Tour of Flanders. We've seen Visma changing their shirt for the Tour de France. We've seen lots of teams doing it for Grand Tours. I think this year Visma is planning to do it for the Tour of Flanders as well. There was a bit of a hype post on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. It looks kind of just like a yellow shirt with black style cobbles on it, but that's just my opinion. I don't know. I haven't seen the full picture yet. Nonetheless, when it comes to Nokere Koerse, Soudal Quickstep changes to Ecopak Soudal Quickstep. So maybe Ecopak, one of their sponsors, has like a local establishment there or something, or finds Nokere Koerse a pretty fun race. But yeah, it looks like the sponsors of the team are not boycotting Nokere Berg, eh? Unserious, Patrick?
No, it's a special kit for the Nokere course, which you respect. Maybe they get to do it. I saw it, I was like, what? Who Quickstep got here? Lamperti. All right, it's been American week with the Pyrenees, so let's see if Lamperti, he looks like their leader for it. See if he can get the job done.
Out of contract?
Is he?
I think so. Am I wrong?
You are correct. He hasn't raced this year. Something must have been wrong.
Ooh.
That's not... Yeah. Usually Quickstep race those young sprinters in, like last year when he won in, he was good in Oman. So behind Manier. Yes. Strange. Hopefully he's good.
What do we think is going to happen in this race? Because like you said, the finish is changing, but it's not the cobble finish, but it's still an uphill drag finish, no?
It is still an uphill finish. So yes, the actual tenor of the finish is not so different, just not the classic Nokere finish. We've got the Lee here. Jakob Soderfist, because it's not a World Tour race for Trek, I'm keen to see. Lewis Aski, Pavel Bittner, De Lee, we already mentioned. Blicker has been good. Moschetti, Kristen.
Teutenberg.
Q365, Teutenberg. So yeah, Trek have a good team. And yes, Philipsen is clearly the favourite for the race. I'm not sure he has the ultimate team around him, but it's still like, yeah, they've got Leonard Bellmans, 23 years old, Belgian on De Koning Conti team, never heard of him. He's probably going to lock the whole race down. I
think Henry Ulich, who is on the squad, just came back from sickness. He had influenza in the last couple of weeks, so I'm not sure he's going to be racing. I don't know. So maybe he's in the race, maybe he's not in the race. But like you say, it's not a godlike team, but Philipsen has been so strong this year that he's the go-to man for the race. But also, you would expect the lead to podium this race. I'm sorry, but if he doesn't podium this race, then there's a bit of a problem for the rest of the races upcoming.
Because there's actually not that many good sprinters here. Like
here we are saying that pressure might be a problem for the lead and then putting pressure on the man.
There's good Pro Conti sprinters like Moschetti, Hofstetter, Dainese, but there's not like a whole host of good sprinters here. So
Luke's cousin, Tim Naberman.
Yep. Okay, that's Nokere Koerse. The women are also racing. Nokere Koerse, it's a similar finish, same finish, 134 Ks. And that's also on, but finishing earlier tomorrow. We have SD Works without Wiebes, so probably Guarici or their sprint option. Lach is their attacking option.
At least they have a Kopecky on the start list, right?
Oh, they have Julia Kopecky, yeah. Where is Lotte Kopecky?
She's on the mountain.
She's on the mountain.
I saw a selfie on Instagram today that she was saying that there was a lot of oxygen in the air. I think she wasn't called Rottes with rainy weather, so training for the Flemish weather apparently. But we're going to see her the first time on MSR. I'm curious to see that because we don't know what her form is at all, but I'd expect it to be okay, right?
Should be. You'd hope it's good. She's been on the mountain for a long time. UAE got Lara Gillespie. She's my pick. I think Gillespie will win for UAE. I know she crashed in GP Oettinger, but I think Gillespie is cracked. And I think she'll beat everybody in the uphill sprint if they lock it down.
I think that is actually a very good pick. I'm trying to look for one that is not Lara Gillespie. Like, when it comes to Little Trek, they've got strong riders as well, in the likes of Clara Caponi. I haven't seen much from Anna Henderson this year, so I'm hoping that we see a bit of a step up there when it comes to Little Trek, because I was pretty high on her in the last couple of years, but it hasn't come out yet when it comes to her new team. So we boxed at Canyon Shram. Want to see how that goes. I've got a feeling it's gonna be a. I've got an SD Works feeling, kinda. Or no. I'm going for Julie de Wilde. I'm sorry, I have to. My Belgian flag, I need to fly
it. Okay. She won a sprint recently, last week?
Yes, she won. Yeah, Oettingen? Yes.
Julie van der Velde, Julie de Wilde, it's tricky.
It's a huge difference. One is a climber, one is like a classic sprinter.
That's why when I saw she won the sprint, I was like, what? How did you do that?
And again, de Wilde, didn't she have like a year where she did really well in like, okay.
I think she was in Tour de France breaks when Phoenix were in the, Milano-Torino returns tomorrow. It's in a different slot. I don't think it's ever had this finish in spring. This is the classic Superga finish where they do 2 reps of the 5K, 9% super steep climb in, as the name suggests, Turin, 178 Ks. It's a semi-classic. It was usually in the middle of the week before Il Lombardia, and you would have basically the absolute big guns from Lombardia doing a 15-minute watt per kilo test to tune up for the race on Saturday. It's now been moved. Well, it has been in this slot for a number of years, but not with this sort of finish. It's been like indeed a sprint stage. It was quite funny in 2022. They had it in this slot, and many teams didn't check the parcours, and it was a sprint race, and I think EF sent like Hugh Carthy and like 60 kilo Simon Kerr to the, and Cavendish won. Last year was more of a hilly race for Kristen and Bettiol, and now it's the classic Superga uphill finish.
But I think that Milano-Torino has been ruined. That is my opinion. Milano-Torino was in the spot before Lombardia in October, like you mentioned. This finish, the Superga climb, offered great racing. Remember the race where Roglic won, Pogacar was kind of beaten by Adam Yates then, and also Almeida or something, ended up off the podium, I think 2020, 2021, somewhere over there. We've had so much good racing on Superga in this race. Then they moved it to the spot before MSR because they wanted to be a tune-up race for MSR, but I'm sorry. A tune-up race for MSR is, first of all, boring. I'm sorry, that's the case. A tune-up race for Lombardia in this fashion with Superga is so much better. And now, like you say, it's before MSR, but with Superga climb, so the MSR people won't show up, and the big climbers are doing other races in this period. So then you have a start list that, in my personal opinion, it's not shit, but it's not fantastic either.
Well, yeah, it ain't Poggi and Almeida and Roglic, that's for sure. And in fact, it's kind of not a development race, but certainly the young riders are there, and Astana are there for points. So they've actually got the strongest overall team in the race.
Hesman is back.
So to the start list. So again, as I said, 5Ks, 9% uphill, super steep. They do 2 reps of it, so they come fresh relatively. It's not like attritional like Amelia. So they should do bonkers watts per kilo. The teams here, XDS Astana, of course. They need the points because it's a dot pro, 200 points for the winner. I think 150 for second. Bettiol's here, Ballerini, Harold Lopez, Tejada, Fortunato, Ulisi, Nicola Conchi. Fortunato should be their leader and indeed can win this race, and then they'll try to get Tejada in the top 5. Movistar here with the fisherman, no, not Vingegaard, Diego Pescador, as well as Hesman, who Benji, as he just said, this is his first race returning from his suspension, and he's he's on Movistar from PCS from 15th of January, and his
suspension ran out the 1st of March, I think.
Let me look.
If I recall, So that's why he's allowed to race now again. Or the 15th of March. It was somewhere in the last 3 weeks. Patrick's looking up for the podcast listeners. You can hear the gears grinding in his head. Like, it takes a lot of mental effort for him to read words. See, it takes a decade for him to read a word.
The 23-year-old
apparently.
settled with WADA on a 7-month suspension and will be allowed to return to the peloton on March 14, per Cycling News. And indeed, it is March 18. So he's back for Movistar, third in Tour de l'Avenir 3 years ago. Sort of an all-round climber. Probably a bit steep for him, but still interesting to see how he goes in competition. UAE haven't announced their team. I guess they'll have Torres or Pericas from there. Yeah, because they can ride the Devo riders. Tudor, don't know who's here again, but hopefully he or she, hopefully Bredene. Melissa bike also turn up. They've not done this race, I don't think, in spring the last 3 years. They come with the Seven Oaks Sabre, Ben Tullett, Nordhagen, who hasn't, who raced in Strada but hasn't really been seen this year. Pietro Matteo and William Smith from the Devo team.
Oh, that explains. Because I was like, those guys are not on the Visma Lisa bike team, but this is one of those races where they do a combined team with their dev team, apparently. Now, I gotta say, Carapaz, we've seen him a lot this year. There hasn't really been a result coming out of it. If there's a race this year that a result needs to come out, it's kind of a Superga parkour, you know? It's like the climb's long enough for Carapaz to actually get a good result here, no?
I thought he'd done well here before.
But his form just hasn't been that this year.
I mean, in Alps Maritime, he got dropped. I think Fortunato's going to win this. I think Fortunato is climbing really well.
Tejada.
Tejada's a lot heavier than you think.
Tejada's going to cook, buddy.
He looked good in Paris-Nice. Yeah, he looked good in Paris-Nice. I think Astana are going to be really difficult to manage with those two. Scaroni's not in the team, but actually I think Tejada and Fortunato is very, very strong. Maybe they'll attack with Bettiol between the two climbs. That's what I would do. But yeah, who do you think will win?
I'm going for Tejada. Okay. What is it? Is it? It's Burgos where the Chumin guy is on, right?
The Guatemalan.
Yeah, I wish he was here.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I love an uphill finish, and I love seeing some of the young guys. I like seeing some different guys fight it out rather than sort of, Pogacar stomp or whoever. We also have on Thursday GP Denain, which is a 200k kind of, they do a lot of cobbles like Paris-Roubaix. It's perfectly flat. Q365 are here with indeed the winner last year, Yannick Steimler. Their biggest win before Pidcock arrived on the scene was actually in this race.
Wow. The race scenario was that he was in the breakaway and everyone behind crashed out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because the league group crashed, remember, in the peloton when they were trying to bridge towards the breakaway, and then Steimler beat everyone in that breakaway. Don't take credit away from Steimler because he put himself in a position where he could win like that, in the same way where it's kind of similar scenario where Alison Jackson ended up winning Paris-Roubaix. Obviously, the peloton fucked up that day.
That was an SD Works special.
Kopecky also crashed trying to get to the front in the first place. So it's kind of a similar scenario.
This, because it's 200Ks, because it's not as hard, because the start list quality is a bit lower, actually sprinters can really survive this. And indeed, Juan Sebastian Milano, who's here for UAE, has won this race himself in 2023. So it can be a bunch sprint. So that's why we have riders like Max Walscheid here, who himself in Roubaix, I think, has come top 10.
Who
Sam Bennett.
Mikael Grimstad Uglyhouse?
Mikael Grimstad Uglyhouse. It's a Norwegian on the Visma Devo team.
Where half their riders are Norwegian these days.
Hagenes, Nordhagen, Uglyhouse.
Okay, it kind of ends there, but you know what I mean. Anyway, continue.
So we see on the provisional, Matthew Brennan, Hagenes, Felix Orn Christoph, really keen to see how he goes. He's the half-brother, I think, of Alexander Christoph, so huge talent on Intermarché, already has a World Tour deal, but he's racing up from the Devo team.
He got shredded in that Grand Prix de la Ville de Lillers.
Nah, but
Souvenir
that was
Bruno
like
Koerse.
that was Healy, no?
Yeah, but
That was Healy. I think this is a different ball game. I think
okay.
Daniel Skirl, can he ride on the cobbles? The sprinter on Bahrain, Case Bowl, Syriza, Alex Sagat, Milan Manton. It's who are you going to go with, Benji?
I'm feeling like Milan Manton at Lotto is definitely a rider that's going to want to perform here. If Timo Killig rides this race, I'm going Killig.
Where's
Because he's
Alperson?
on the preliminary start list.
Yeah, hard to go past Alperson. Yeah, I would have picked Kierlich, but seeing as you picked Kierlich,
Too late, buddy.
I'll go Sam Bennett.
He's been good.
Sam Bennett's been good, yeah. Bredene Koksijde.
I gotta say, the best edition of GP Denain remains the one where Roglic was riding.
Dude, Roglic could have won. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Right. I'm not sure how much of this I can say, but I still vividly remember making a PowerPoint to like explain how cobbles work.
Dude,
So,
Roglic was a
that was
natural.
an era.
He was a natural on the cobbles. He was dropping people without trying, just being in front position.
Was it
I think
Martinez
Roglic
that
should
also
do
did well?
Don't you think Roglic could win Flanders?
No fucking way. Positioning
No?
wise, he's gonna break his legs.
I think Roglic in another life could have been a classics rider.
In another life, maybe, but
He's
not in this
seriously
one.
Tour of Flanders, mate. He would have been on the Paderberg. See you later. Koppenberg, because he's seated power. He's not an out of the saddle guy. He's a seated power
True.
specialist. Yeah, he like really. The problem is you just
Who
have
else?
to you have to open the race immediately to thin out the peloton, so he doesn't have to fight for position anymore.
Which other top 20 GC riders could do well at RVV? Like Vincenzo Nibali back in the day when he
Let me have a
launched Terpstra to the victory. I'm thinking out loud
GC
here. Landa
ranking.
wouldn't.
Uh,
Yeah.
Ben O'Connor.
He's got the racing skill if he gets in a group ahead, but is he good on calls? I don't know about that.
Bilbao.
Probably, actually. I'm trying to think what other guys exist. Ciccone
Wow.
wouldn't.
No.
Ayuso?
Yeah.
Not yet. But
Yeah, why not?
Del Toro, I want to see at RVV.
No, he doesn't have the explosivity.
I
Remco,
still want to see
obviously.
it.
Remco. Wasn't he supposed to do RVV?
I think it was on the menu to do so to get with MSR this year, but I don't know if it was like official. But obviously, due to the injury, that is not happening. What is the update on that? Because I think Tour de France is definitely happening based on the words he was saying in the media, but maybe Romandy was supposed to be editor, or was that something I heard months ago?
I think Brabant and kicks off his Ardennes campaign.
Is he going to be back for that?
That's on PCS. It's in
Let's hope so.
It's in a month,
Let's hope so.
hopefully. Okay, Bredene Koksijde. This is 200 Ks. This is the just like GP Denain is the baby version of Roubaix. Maybe this is the baby version of Gent-Wevelgem. They do the Barneberg, Monteberg, and the Kemmelberg, but it's really far from the 100 Ks from the finish. The last one, and they only do 2 repetitions. Although they do the steep side. Can have really, really shitty weather, of course, this time of year. And who's doing it? DeLee.
I don't know if he does.
Is this the race last year where Patrick Eddy refused to relay and stopped Lampard winning?
Mate, I don't remember.
I think it is, and he became an enemy of Flanders for life.
Well, I don't think he's living rent-free in the head of Flanders here. I don't think Flemish people remember Patrick Eddy. No offense.
I think they do.
He sounds like a Flemish guy to begin with. Patrick Eddy.
Yeah, it does.
He's named after medics. And after Patrick Evenepoel.
There's a bunch of Misk Pro Conti sprinters here, plus apparently Dylan Groenewegen and Jacobsen. I think it's going to be a sprint. That's why I'm not sure it's the best race for DeLee, because I don't see how he goes solo from there unless there's crazy crosswinds and bad weather.
Possible. De Moeren.
There's always can be crosswinds. I am going to go with Milan Fretin ahead of Simon De Haes.
Ooh, I like the pick of Milan Fretin, actually. I'm going to go with... I haven't seen much of Gerben Thijssen this year. He got topped in a Jean-Pierre Monsteret, but it's hard to necessarily go for him. I hope Groenewegen gets it right. Like, he's actually got a good team around him. The likes of Jelte Krijnsen this year, haven't really seen much from him yet. He was kind of the upcoming guy at the end of last year that ended up signing for Jaco Lula after being at Q30 6.5 as stagiaire, if I recall. Robert Donaldson, I want to see what he does for the upcoming smaller classics, because he rode Omloop and Kuurne, but just as like a Neo Pro, that's a bit of a high-end step. So I want to see what it does in the smaller classics, to be honest. But actually, Tobias Lund Andresen, I'm switching. Jacobsen, it's not going to work. Andresen's going to win.
Okay, fair enough. I think this is the race Jacobsen should survive the finish. One would think. So that's there's also Youngster Coast Challenge, which was won by Nicholas Behrens last year. So if you're looking for the maybe classics riders of the future, that's also on this weekend. U23 results.
Hector.
With Hector Alvarez, can he be the next Spanish great classics rider? He looks like it.
Yes. I've concluded.
Yeah.
I've ridden with him on the Paris-Roubaix cobbles last year. When I did the Paris-Roubaix Sportif, he was by the side of the road, hyping me up. And on the final cobble sector, he kind of rode with me a bit. So I could feel the watts coming from his legs. So undoubtedly a future classics winner.
Fair enough. I think it'll be won by Sentje Sentiens.
It's close enough, the pronunciation. Sentje Sentiens. He's a good
Belgian
rider.
He's a Belgian, another one of these Alpecin created like, what's the place in the Lord of the Rings when they're creating the Urukai? You know, and
Isengard.
they're coming out of like the ground. Alpecin have this for these Belgian guys.
Belgian and Oscar Isabek.
Yeah, same thing.
Well, to be honest, Sentje Sentiens, so basically, in Belgium, we've got multiple club teams. Akkerok Tormans is one of the big club teams. I could be wrong, but I think they've now got a deal with the Quickstep development team since last year or something. Quickstep also expanded on that last week by signing another club team that's pretty huge in Belgium. So the Quickstep dev team is kind of in control of the Belgian club team riders right now, is how I feel like it personally. Akkerok Tormans or Akkerok Balen is what it was called in 2022, is where Sentje Sentiens came from to Alpecin. So Akkerok is the one with the Isengard Urukai creation for Belgian youngsters, while Alpecin has it for ChatGPT riders that might not have been on the club teams in such fashion. Does that make sense?
Got it. So this guy's going to be pretty good, I think.
This conversation out of context is so crazy.
Okay, so I think we've got a lot of semi-classics coming up, so I feel a bit starved of racing the last 2 days outside of Tour of Taiwan, where Brady Gilmore won again, who also won in Rwanda. But yeah, otherwise, I think, Benji, have you got more geopolitical news about Rwanda and Belgium?
So I think Rwanda has cut ties with Belgium on a diplomatic level, and as a consequence has removed all embassy members from its country. I will refuse to comment on this until I speak to my Belgian brethren.
You're correct from Reuters. You're just exactly right. Rwanda and Belgium.
This is the first time I get anything right diplomatically on this podcast.
Rwanda and Belgium expel each other's diplomats over Congo conflict. This is recent news as of yesterday from Reuters, as relations deteriorate regarding allegations about respective roles in the conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Like, that's all jokes aside, Benji. Can Belgium, the national federation, can they send a team then? If this is the status as at world champs?
I love that you're asking me and my geopolitical knowledge here. But...
To me, that says no. The national federation, with national funds, with junior athletes representing the country, how can they go and compete in a world championship where the relations between the two nations have got to the point where they've expelled each other's diplomats and they've cut diplomatic ties? So, yeah, it's not looking... It's just another data point that would suggest that we're going to have, if it does proceed in Rwanda, a very strange World Championships with probably not the full complement of stars that one would expect normally.
There was also an article in the last maybe month somewhere about the fact that multiple riders were complaining about having to get certain vaccinations for the Rwanda World Championships, because I don't know what the actual thing is, but can, for example, if you get a vaccination next week, can that lead to like a week of feeling shit and therefore that impacting your race and it having to be within a certain period before the World Championship, so it ruins one of your season goals before Worlds?
Van Avermaet?
Well, I don't think that was what caused Van Avermaet's results to be shit. No offense.
Aaron Rodgers?
Who is Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I got him. I had to throw in another American sports reference.
I was like, is that like the junior kid of Michael Rodgers?
He lied about his COVID vaccination status.
Really?
He said he was immunized instead of like. Anyway, he's washed, so it doesn't matter. I think he's going to the Vikings. Baseball opening day began today. LA Dodgers. Anyway, no, we're ending. I'm trying to trigger Benji with baseball stuff. We're going to end the podcast now. Lots of racing on. We're going to have the Milano-Sanremo preview maybe tomorrow evening if the start list, because we don't trust the provisionals at the moment, given that it's got people with broken collarbones and separately announced schedules on it. So we'll wait, but otherwise I think we can proceed doing it tomorrow night because we know roughly who the big guns are anyway. So hope you enjoyed the pod and the weekly show as always. Thanks for joining Cycling, and we'll see you with that in a day or two. Till then, ciao.